concluded executive session. There's nothing left to report out. And we are back to resume the public portion at 7:50. And if we could rise and for the Pledge of Allegiance. And Trustee Flippin, would you lead us in the pledge?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We have one board member on remote. Tara Kavanaugh is on remote, so she's right here. And just a reminder of the emergency exits. We have one to my right, to the audience left, and to the rear of the building. In the event of an emergency, please proceed through those doors in an orderly fashion. This is also a smoke-free school district. Smoking is not permitted in the building or anywhere on the grounds. This is also a hate-free and bully-free school district. And with that, welcome to our audience members and to those who are watching us via live stream. And that brings us up to the board consent agenda for item C. Mr. Superintendent.
Thank you, President Felice. The administration recommends the approval of board consent items reflected in Schedule C1 through C4.
Okay. There's a motion for C1 through C4. Do we have a motion on Trustee Flippin? Seconded by Trustee Barry. Any discussion on those items? Seeing no discussions, all those in favor, please raise your hands. Seeing all hands raised, the board, the motion passes unanimously. Thank you. That's it. Oh, okay, thank you. Thank you. Okay. Do you see Tara as well?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
All right, just checking so you know that her hand was
Yes.
raised. Okay, good.
Thank you.
You got it. All right. All right, that brings us to communications and announcements. And first we have, I'm sorry, you gave that to me, and then I gave it back to you. First, we have presentation of the financial statements by our independent auditor, Mr. Mike Leone of Cullen and Danowski, and he will be here to present our most recent financial statements and auditor's report.
Good evening,
Welcome.
everybody. It's always nice to be here. I was just here yesterday. I can't stay with you.
I know, it's good to see you again.
So I'm here to present the external audit. I did meet with the audit committee yesterday. We went through the financial statements in great detail. So today's meeting is more of a summary of the financial results. Also, I do want to start off saying I want to thank the board for engaging us as the external auditors. It's always a pleasure. I want to thank Jen and the administration for all their assistance throughout the audit. It's a very involved process, takes a number of weeks. We're very appreciative. So we completed the audit for June 30th, 2023, and we issued what is known as an unmodified opinion. So what does that mean? In terms of our profession, that means that we obtained reasonable assurance that the financial statements and the related disclosures are fairly stated in all material respects. Some of the things that we do as also part of the audit is we'll look at internal controls. We don't opine upon them, but we do issue a management letter, which we did issue. And then we also look at the extra classroom activity funds, and we issue an opinion on that. So essentially, for the year, the district finished the year with a slight decrease in their general fund balance of about $168,000, but that's primarily because of about $4.8 million in reserves that were transferred over to the capital projects fund based on voter approval. There's various different capital projects that are running, so the district was able to transfer some of that money. Excluding that, they would have had an increase in their fund balance. In addition to that, the reserves, the district's pretty healthy with their various different reserves that they have, so it's nice to see that. It's good to see that the district has some reserves that are in place in the event of events that unexpected events. As I mentioned earlier, we also did issue what is known as a management letter, and that is just suggestions that we make with respect to internal controls. We went over that yesterday with the audit committee. The district is in the process of putting together a corrective action plan. There's nothing major there. And as I mentioned too, that we did the extra classroom activity funds, but we've completed that. The only other item that we do need to complete is the single audit. That's due 9 months after year end. The district receives a significant amount of federal funding, over $11 million this year in federal funding, which is great. It's very helpful to the district, but we have to do a compliance audit with respect to that. The only other item that I'd like to mention is also as part of our audit, we have to review compliance with laws and regulations, since this audit has to be conducted under government auditing standards. And the event that we had any findings related to that, we would have to report that. So I'm happy to report that we did not have any issues that relate to that. So that's it in a very summary form. We went through it in a lot more detail yesterday with some great questions. So if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Myself and Vice President Hayes were present for that meeting with the audit committee. Ann is on the audit committee. And the committee was very engaged with the information that you provided. And you were equally as engaged in providing the answers back, so I want to thank you for that. You were also very complimentary to the district, that they were very cooperative with you. We would expect nothing less, but nevertheless, we want to thank them too for the cooperation, because we know just how tedious an audit can be. And then thank you for your findings and your presentation. So with that, I'll just open it up to the board for any additional questions or comments. Anything? Okay. All right, that's an actionable item, is it not?
Later in the agenda.
Later in the agenda, we do it? Okay, very well.
Fantastic.
Your
Thank you very
time
much.
here is done.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you.
Actually, this one
Thank
was
you,
quicker.
Mr. Leoni.
Thank you. I appreciate the feedback.
Of course. Of
Thank
course.
you.
Good to see you, people.
Good to see you, Chris.
All right, that brings us to Ambassadors of Compassion presentation.
So we're going to go a little bit out of order. I'm going to start my superintendent's report.
All right then.
Mr. Hayes' presentation is embedded in my report. So
Okay. Will he be speaking to us as well?
he will be.
All right then. Don't want to waste that good suit for nothing.
That's right.
Right.
Thank you.
Vinny, we can see the speaker for the audience that's
Online camera.
looking
Yeah,
online?
you're.
Is he in the frame? Because I didn't turn on the YouTube channel.
Yeah, you can
He's in
see
the
it.
frame?
I can see
Okay.
what's
Thank
going on
you.
in YouTube,
The end of the presentation.
Well, that was quick.
Very quick one, so I'm going to be quick to give Mr. Hayes his moment to shine. But welcome again to our board meeting. I'd be remiss if I did just mention that thoughts and prayers go out to everybody affected by the conflict in Israel. I have friends who live and have family in Israel who are pretty close to me, and I actually have friends on both sides of it. I'm very close to someone who's Palestinian. And it's just horrific. We sent a message out to our community just to kind of warn parents about some of the images that are sort of circulating around social media, which are really gruesome. There's also a lot of misinformation out there. For example, I just got, as we were sitting here, a group text from superintendents that's apparently a fake story, that there's going to be sort of a war, a holy war against people of Jewish faith on October 13th. It's a hoax. So we're monitoring it to see if it has traction on social media. But yeah, I just wanted to sort of make a public comment saying that I'm really, it's heartbreaking. And not only do I think about the impact on those people directly in the front lines, the people who have family or friends who reside in the area, just the impact it has on ourselves and our whole sort of mental health, I'll say that, and certainly for younger people who can't really understand the complexities or the nuances of such conflicts. So I'm hoping the conflict gets resolved soon, people are safe, and that there's the loss of life and suffering is minimized.
Thank you.
All right. Along those lines, today we had our College Board testing day at the high school. So in the name of equity, we offer the following College Board exams to all of our students at the high school. The SAT is administered to all of our seniors. It's a paper copy of the test. Ms. Johnson is here. She survived it this afternoon. That was actually done on paper. The rest of the exams were done digitally. And I want to give credit to the high school staff for managing College Board sort of crash this afternoon in the midst of testing. They managed it. All the students were able to be administered a test. The PSAT and the National Merit Scholarship Qualifying Test was administered to all students in grades 10 and 11. That's basically the practice SAT, and the 11th graders or juniors are eligible based on their scores to get merit scholarships based on the scores on this exam. This was offered to all of our students, and we also offered the PSAT 9 to our freshmen. So it was a day where we engaged all of the students in testing at no cost to the students or our community, just to give them a practice. They'll be receiving feedback directly from the College Board in the next few weeks to see how they did. So it's a great practice, and again, credit to our high school administration and Mr. Restivo, our head of guidance, for putting this together. And tomorrow we continue with this college theme with our fall college fair. We have about 109 colleges represented at our fair. Students will have the option to come down to the college fair tomorrow at the high school, which is going to be fantastic. And this is strictly geared for colleges. Along those lines, in the spring, we do have a college and career fair. Every spring, we'll have one as well in 2004. The reason I displayed a picture of myself and Bob Vecchio, who is the executive director of NYSBA, is because I took something away from him, and I promised I'd always give him credit, that all of our graduates, or at least graduates from public schools, should be one of 3 E's: enrolled, employed, or enlisted. So our spring college and career fair kind of speaks to those 3 areas. And I should also note, I didn't put a slide, but we just had the fortune to a refit dinner to talk about school finances. And one of the things I wanted to kind of make the board aware of is that while schools, the foundation aid has finally been sort of satisfied by New York State, it's based on the census from the year 2000. It's kind of antiquated. So some people feel like the battle to get appropriate school funding is over. But one of the things we kind of learned and gleaned from that meeting is that it's not over, because the formulas they use are kind of antiquated. There's sort of a disproportionality of how funds and resources are allocated to districts in New York State. So it was a very informative dinner that I got to attend with Mr. Vecchio, and I'll keep the trustees apprised of any developments when it comes to school foundation aid or any changes that come down the line. Moving on, we also had participation in the New York State Council of School Superintendents Full Leadership Summit. I was happy to have gone up with Ms. Beth Doyle. Dr. Jamal Colson was also not pictured here, but in attendance. But I got to kind of do my thing up there. It was a great event, a TED Talk style presentation that I was able to do for all of New York State's superintendents. The theme, again, was the world is different and there was no going back. How can we best push through our anxiety and uncertainty to provide our students with an experience that meets their academic, social, and emotional needs? I had to deliver that message in 15 minutes, but it was very well received. I'm incorporating, this is basically the same message I sort of spoke to the district about on opening day, and which I'll be sharing with the Board of Trustees at our retreat, tying in some other thematic elements when we talk about our governance and our responsibilities moving forward for this current school year. I also had the fortune to sit for a panel discussion with the Commissioner, Dr. Rosa. They spoke about graduation requirements. They talked about electric buses, big topics of conversation. One of the things I will say this, it's not a criticism of Dr. Rosa, is as much as I speak, you walk away not really feeling like you learned anything, because so many things are in the planning phases. The Blue Ribbon Commission is going to come out with a report in November that talks about anticipated changes to graduation requirements. I'll certainly share that report with the Board of Trustees once it becomes available to us. But it was a good discussion, and it's good to sort of see the people who are in charge of the State Education Department speak in such panel discussions. The most impactful presentation I saw was by Dr. Manny Scott. For those of you who are not familiar, there was a movie in 2007 called Freedom Riders that depicted a school in Long Beach, California that was kind of filled with a lot of troubled youth. And the movie depicted a woman that came from affluence. In fact, she was the daughter of the Clippers NBA team, not our Clippers, but LA Clippers, who decided to work in the school, much to the opposition of the students who gave her an extremely hard time. By his words, she showed up with her pearls, trying to teach Shakespeare to this group of kids. But ultimately, long story short, was that he came from a very traumatic childhood, and his presentation was extremely emotional. There's a whole room of superintendents that actually brought down tears. And his message was that any one person could change the trajectory of a person's life. He was one of the students in this person's class that was depicted in the movie. And I'm not going to go into some of his traumas, but they were pretty extraordinary. But the idea that this Greek lunch lady in the school basically stopped him from walking off campus and dropping out and simply just saying, Manny, you have potential. Yeah, it was this Greek lunch lady that kind of changed his life and made him kind of reflect along with his teacher and those people. So his message was that any one person, regardless of what your position is in a school district or a community, has the power to change the trajectory of a person's life. Very powerful and uplifting. And aside from that, Ms. Doyle, Dr. Coles, and myself attended topics or workshops about boosting attendance empowering leadership to support LGBTQ+ students and staff, the impact on public schools of the Supreme Court's ruling on affirmative action and how it may impact our college admission rates, leadership, equity, and dignity, empowering student success through career and technical education. Again, that goes to the employment side of what we talked about. And let's not freak out about AI was one of the workshops. I kept the title of the workshop because, yes, I did freak out. The technology's come far, and we can't run from it anymore. And in the best case scenarios, it could be a wonderful tool that will supplement our instruction. In the worst case scenario, it's very easy to log on to these websites that are free, where you can create videos, that we call it deep fakes, and just really create content that's not real, but looks absolutely real. And so they talked about some of those applications, but ultimately it's going to be a part of our existence, especially in the world of education. I'll make a confession, my son uses it in college to help with some of his assignments. He thinks it's great when he can't figure out a physics question or an engineering question. He uses artificial intelligence to kind of come up with a solution. It's almost like an online tutor. But again, there's a sort of scary applications as well. On a brighter note, we are celebrating our pep rally last Friday, and despite forecast for rain, it was a beautiful sunny afternoon for athletes. It's a great day. I do want to commend all the students. We had the entire population of the high school out of the bleachers. They were fantastic. We ended like about 10 minutes early, and of course, as a former high school principal, 10 minutes of idle time. Don't be offended, Bryn. Don't be offended. But 10 minutes of idle time for high school students could be an eternity, but they were fantastic. And it really was a great afternoon seeing all of our teams represented, and certainly there was a clip of pride in the air. So really compliments to Mr. Hayes for putting together a nice program. We got to use our new scoreboard to highlight some of the teams, and it really was a great day. Same can't be said about the weather for the following day in homecoming. Yes, it did rain in our parade, and as a superintendent, you're always stressed about making calls about the weather. And when I made the call to cancel the homecoming day parade, there was a 100% chance of rain during the parade time. And of course, what didn't happen? Rain during that time. It did mist and rain a little bit in the morning, and it certainly rained on the homecoming day game. But it was a great day to be out. And what I love about homecoming and some of our athletic events is that it really brings out the whole community. We had some of our youth sports represented. The young cheerleaders were way too cute. Community members, our pep band. We had some fantastic plays, like this run down the sideline by Caleb White, our quarterback. Our homecoming court was honored, and our fans are fantastic. But super shout out to our cheerleaders that were cheering in the pouring rain, and that's a picture of them in their little ponchos. The spirit was high. We had a great victory, so a great day to be had by all. So that brings me to Patrick Hayes, which I'm going to call up now to the podium, because athletics has become more than just athletic competition. And so one of the things we engaged in, one of the programs we're engaged in and we launched with the board's approval is the Ambassadors of Compassion. The Ambassadors of Compassion, I'm not going to take any of Mr. Hayes' thunder away. It's basically a character-based education program that we've made available to our athletes. So without further ado, I want to invite Mr. Hayes, our athletic director, up to the podium so he can share a little bit about what the program means and what we're doing in the district. Advance with the arrow.
Yes, sir.
And this is a mouse pad. See? Let's make sure you left it. Left it.
Okay, thank you. All right. Thank you, Mr. Santana, and good evening, Board of Trustees, President Felice. It's a pleasure to be here, and thank you for giving me this opportunity to present the Ambassadors Program. So how it came about. January last year, we had a guest speaker at our annual AD's meeting, our monthly AD meeting. This was a gentleman, Hollywood kind of producer, a lot of big network ties, came in, and he just came in with all this energy. And he defined it as grit. Every generation has their description of what gives you that adversity, that ability to overcome challenges in life. And as always, a generation's always going to look at the generation below you and say, I can't believe that's what's going on with that generation, and I'm sure we can say that about my generation. They said it about your generation. But there's something different going on in the world today, and it is the readily availability of technology, and it is, as Mr. Santana presented upstate, it is a different world, and our students, our adolescents, are trying to traverse this world in a different way that none of us have any experience with. So these large thinkers, very successful people, NFL owners, Hollywood entertainment producers, big companies came together and created this ambassadors program. And the ambassador program really finites the details of what it means to be successful in life. And that means, can we overcome failures in life? And it's okay to fail in life, but we have to have the coping mechanisms to understand that that creates us into a better person. And as I opened it up with, it was grit, resiliency, and all those different items that make us successful in life. But they packed this and bundled this into a resiliency program, a leadership program, and a character education all tied into one. It has been a huge success on the West Coast. They were trying to get a foothold here in the East Coast. They have a goal of 1 million students to take part in this Ambassadors of Compassion. They're on their way. They've had it on the West Coast for a while, and they have some tremendous results. East Islip High School piloted it 2 years ago, and now this year it's gaining a lot more traction here in Suffolk County. So we are very proud of your support, and for us to actually have this operating right now every day after school with our student athletes. In my opinion, the student athletes were the low-lying fruit. We could grab them. I already have my teams made up, and we could start our group formations and start the student-centered approach. So what it actually does is, now I'm going to stop rambling, and I'm going to show you what we have here. We are in the LIFE program. So it's broken down into 4 categories: labor, influence, forgiveness, and experience. This goes into our 10-week program. And inside these 10-week programs, it's a weekly detailed lesson where we capture the kids' attention with something that resonates within them. All of our students are living these unique experiences. They go home to different lives. They have different sets here, different experiences in the classroom with the teacher, different experience with the coach, whomever, however. But what they don't realize is that we're all connected as one because we are so unique, and that this program brings all of that and brings us together. So in terms of labor, just for that point, it's getting kids to understand that if you want something in life, it's all about how hard you work for it and what are you willing to sacrifice for that. And now we'll play a video in the class in the week 1 lesson of labor, and it's a quick hit, which I'll show you in a second, and it captures their attention. Then we follow up with these organic groups where the kids are talking. And if you hear anything I say today, hear this. Our kids are talking to each other about their lives in a platform that wouldn't normally exist. And they're actually able to have guided conversations about how they truly do feel and what their real challenges are in a safe space, because this is their teammates. This is what they're in this together. And that gives them better camaraderie. It makes them feel a better sense of belonging in this, and it puts them a part of something bigger than themselves. So I really am ecstatic that we are underway with this program. I'm happy to say that it's just our varsity programs right now, but I look forward to expanding it in due time. We're going to carry it over to our winter and spring sports, but right now it's just for our fall. And then we go into the other categories of influence. Our positive influences, obviously those are great, they're positive, but more so we learn from our negative influences as well. Forgiveness, our ability to it really is an opportunity for our kids to speak about hardships in their lives in a safe place. If they don't feel comfortable, they don't have to speak, but they have that opportunity to speak amongst their group with just themselves. It is guided by our ambassadors facilitator as well as our coaches, but it is just a group conversation that is guided on the online curriculum. I'm going to take you through a little lesson, okay? So, this would be our experiences, and it opens up, and this is what the kids are saying. Negative experiences don't have to destroy your life. And then we'll go into a conversation with our facilitator about why and what a true negative experience is and how it can actually turn into a positive in life. Kind of like what Mr. Santana was saying before, that gentleman he was speaking of in Freedom Riders. Horrible hardships, but he did have one positive experience that he decided to make a change, and Mr. Santana and I spoke about that after he came home from that because he was so moved, was that this man was able to promote his life based on one little spark from this individual, and they wanted it different. And we're hoping to be that spark for our students here. So this would be Anthony Robles. Some of you might know who he is and might not, but we're going to find out right now.
I remember the first time I saw Anthony Russell. I went in the stands and my son threw down his crutches and he hopped to the middle of the mat. And there's this scrawny little kid, and that's my son, and I was so proud of him, but this woman was laughing, and it broke my heart. I never wanted him to look at himself and say, hey, something's wrong with me, because these people keep looking at me and pointing. But if anybody's known Anthony throughout his whole life, it's that big smile, that great personality, and never letting anything get him down. Even when they'd ask him, what happened to your leg? He's like, I was born that way. Just with confidence, he just says it. I know Anthony made it a point that he wanted to go to Division I school. He had worked really hard with 2 undefeated seasons, 2 state titles. When he wasn't heavily recruited, he knew he had something to prove once again. When he first started, it was like, oh, poor thing, good for him, he's trying, he's got 1 leg, he's at a disadvantage. And then as he started winning, well, he's got an advantage because he's got all that upper body strength and, people can't get low enough. And I'm like, no, the kid just figured out how to beat you guys.
And it will be a tall task for Anthony Robles, the senior from Mesa, Arizona, 7 minutes away from a national title.
I was scared for him, knowing that it had to be Iowa, knowing that it had to be the former champion. For anybody to give Anthony any credit, it had to be the best of the best. Anthony worked really hard and he'd overcome a lot of stuff. A lot of people not expecting him to do it, people not expecting him to do anything. And for him to take control of that match, that was his defining moment. The pride I feel for him is indescribable. It's an honor to be Anthony's mom.
There were plenty of times in my career where I wanted to quit, when I was going through things. My sophomore season of college, my father left our family, my mom lost our home, and so she was bouncing around from couch to couch. My family was homeless, basically. And at that time, I wanted to quit wrestling. I felt like it was too hard, there was too many challenges in my life to continue on. But there's always going to be those obstacles. And it's not the competitors, it's not those challenges in your life that you have control over. The only thing you have control over is how you respond to things. Because there's always going to be an excuse, there's always going to be something you can say, well, I can't do this because of that. I can't do it because this is stopping me. You can't think that way. You have to have that mindset where you say, I'm going after it no matter what, I'm going to get it no matter what. It's not easy to accomplish your goals. You're not going to have an easy road, and there's going to be a price to pay, and it's going to be hard. One of my favorite quotes that I had in my locker, it said, the prize is in direct proportion to the price. The greater the rewards you seek, the greater the effort needs to be to achieve them. So you may have some big goals, you may have some small goals, doesn't matter what it is, you have to pay the price to get there. It's not going to be easy, and it's not going to come without some sacrifice. So just remember that, and always think about that goal. Write it down, put it somewhere where you can see it, so whenever you wake up, you'll see your goal and say, I'm going to get a little bit closer to it today. I'm going to get a little bit closer to accomplishing my goal. The Yeah, I accomplished my goal back on March 19th of attaining my national championship, but I'm not done yet. I got other goals. And my number one goal now is to be able to help other people, such as all you guys watching. I know it's hard, I know it's challenging, but it's just about helping yourself and helping other people. Look around you. You got a lot of people around you who want to accomplish their goals. Lean on each other. There's a quote that said, iron sharpens iron. Be that for each other. Help each other. Lean on each other and obtain your goals so you can turn around and help other people. Because there's no greater blessing in life than to be able to turn around and help inspire others. And that's what it's all about, is helping.
Ladies and gentlemen, the recipient of this year's Jimmy V Award for Perseverance, Anthony Robles.
So a pretty remarkable story about Anthony Robles, and the video says it all. But this captures the attention of our student athletes, and it gets them to say, wow, if this man is able to do that and accomplish all that, what can I do for myself? What can I do for my teammates? And how can I be successful in life? And those are everyday conversations that we have within athletics, but it's just another supporting voice that our student athletes get to hear from a different perspective and give them that opportunity to be vulnerable amongst their peers. We've already had some really tremendous breakthrough moments where kids learn things about their coaches because their coaches are in this room and they're sharing things that they would have never known about their coach, about their childhood. So it really does create this inclusive model to where we are connecting on a different level to understand that we are in this together to get through life, because we know as adults there are a lot of hardships that come our way, and our ability to be strong and resilient and there for one another is the only thing that gets us through it. So I'm happy to present this program. I think it's a great program. It was fitting. Our kickoff event was at Eastside. We loaded up 6 buses. We took all the varsity athletes there, and this is where the Hollywood comes into it. They do this big show, presenters. Gio was one of them, Boomer Esiason, but it was pouring the entire time. And it was outside, and every kid, it was August 25th, it was kind of chilly, everyone still had the summer hots, so you put it down to 72 and everyone's freezing. And you could see it on the kids, but it was ironic in the sense that here we are, kids are complaining about a little bit of rain, and I'm sorry, it's just rain. And that's the message of all this, is we really need to understand and put things in perspective, that we share this common human element, and we need to be resilient with each other. The nice thing that the program does after those videos is it brings it into these guided group discussions that always circle back to their individual goals that they have at the beginning of the program. So, and again, it's student-centered, so they're doing it amongst themselves. Our facilitator and our coaches circulate to make sure they're on task, but the groups that are doing this are getting a lot from it because they're talking about things that they normally wouldn't talk about between 2 and 2:45 when they're waiting for practice to start. So it is an enriching experience, and this is where the real substance happens that we have no access to, and it's purely private. The kids have online journals, and they're able to then go to the calls of actions, and they access their online journal account, and they can type in how they're feeling about these particular questions, about their failures, their successes, and their hardships in life, and it's private. It's for them. It's this digital diary that the kids have. None of us as supervisors or even coaches have access to it, and that's the confidentiality, that this is the kids' tool to be a resource for them to express themselves in a positive manner, because as we all know, writing things down really helps with coping and thinking through everything in our lives, because it is so complicated, especially for our student athletes who are 16, 17 years old trying to navigate this world. And now, here are some of the results that they're experiencing on the West Coast. I'm hoping that it gains some traction here. That way we can get some really big productions like they have out there. They literally flip the script on the red carpet. They have all the professional athletes and the superstars and the actresses on the opposite side of the red carpet. And then the kids that go through the program at the completion of it will be coming down the promenade. It is really nicely done in the West Coast. Like I said, it's been established there for a while. I'm hoping it gets the same kind of traction here on the East Coast. But as you can see, 95% increase among students who now have the meaning of forgiveness and how to apply it in their life. We know everyone is human and mistakes are made, and we can't live life begrudging people. And the only way to move on is to forgive first and foremost. 50% of the students were able to share deep emotional pain that they had never been able to share before. 91% increase in students who now feel they had more control of their lives and their futures. 85% increase among students who now feel they can choose a positive influence for their life, and 96% increase among students who feel they are able to plan and set realistic goals in their lives. Now, there's direct relation to attendance rates. On the West Coast, they've seen a dramatic increase in student attendance, students' achievements, increase in A's, decrease in failures. So the connection of self-worth that this program enhances and really promotes is something that can not only be seen in our teams, but in just our everyday, which they are students. So it's pretty exciting to say. And at that completion of it, each team has a service project. And this is the part where they get into, and that's what we're in right now with our teams. They're working on it this week, is starting to discuss our service projects. And this is really the community outreach and getting the kids to think beyond themselves and beyond their teams. How can they impact change on their level? And here's just some examples of what they have out west, and putting together care packages for homeless, refurbishing gardens, read-alongs, sending thank you cards to soldiers, succulent search for gardens, strength quotes, just a whole wide variety of pretty much making somebody else's day better. And getting the kids to realize that there's a lot more than just what meets the eye to being an adolescent, and stepping out of themselves and stepping up into a different role that they normally wouldn't. So that, in a nutshell, is Ambassadors of Compassion. This program is free. We don't pay for this service. Those online digital journals, there's nothing there. It has huge sponsorships. They fed us on that kickoff event. It was a great deal. We just had to get there, which was no issue. But it is a great program, and I'm happy to present it and hopefully to continue to promote it along in the seasons and years to come. Thank you.
Thank you. Comments by the board? Yes.
One clarification.
Yes.
Every single varsity team is doing that this year?
Yes. Yep. Every single varsity team is. Yeah. And I'm hoping in the winter I'm going to be doing JV and varsity. Just the sheer numbers of athletes, season to season. Winter is a little bit more manageable. So I'll be able to do JV and varsity. And then spring I'll have to reevaluate again.
Well, you obviously believe in the program. You can tell that just in the passion you've given us here in your presentation. There was a similar course, something that reminded me of a course that I had to take when I went back to school, because I went back to school late in life.
Okay.
At St. Joseph's University. It was college then, but it was called Adults in Transition. And the idea was, you know, you're coming back to school, and there's a big failure rate for people coming back to school late, and they just don't feel like they can do it, and you know, they have work demands, they have family demands, and so to keep those adults in transition engaged, it was very much like what you have described. And it was very beneficial because you're right, people share things that they would not normally have shared. So I want to thank you for being as invested in the program as you obviously are, because you are an ambassador to our kids, and you certainly set a good role model. And I'm anxious to see the results that you're looking for.
Yes, yeah, me too.
in years to come. So thank you again. You're welcome.
All right, thank you. Have a great evening.
Never round.
But I really like with the program, it really like balances out, you know, our push for like equity and kindness, and also dealing with perseverance. I think it's a fine line because, you know, life sometimes is difficult, and I feel like sometimes students and people want to give up. And the whole idea of the program is how do you push through it, how do you forgive people so you can move on, and how liberating that is. But I think it's a worthwhile program because it really, there's a lot of commonality in the strife we go through in life. And whether the circumstances might not be identical, the emotional response is. And so thank you, Mr. Hayes, for recommending the program. Looking forward to see it grow and flourish. Continuing with my report, we're about to conclude Hispanic Heritage Month. I got the privilege of attending a Viva Mexico presentation at the middle school. They engage in traditional dances and Mexican gritos, which means screams, which I don't know was a good idea in the middle school because in the auditorium full of 6th and 7th graders, it was ear piercing. But it was happy noise and it was actually really informative. I learned a little bit about some of the culture and some of the things like we've seen but never really understood the origins for. We also had literacy leaders that we held, and I want to thank all the staff that was involved. We brought some English language learners to Kramer Street from the high school to read to 2nd graders in both English and language and Spanish. And it really was a fantastic experience because the 2nd graders look up to high school students always. So whether it's just athletes helping students, restorative athletes who come down and work with the young students. This was especially special because it was also so validating for our English language learners to actually be highlighted, and the fact that they were able to read in English and Spanish in front of these kids who identified with them was really fantastic. So it was a great experience, really positive. Great to have been a part of it. And also classroom visitations. I had the privilege of being interviewed in Spanish and English by some students at the high school to discuss some of the things we share in common. And again, it's all about celebrating our different students and servicing our entire community. Certainly a large part of our community are Latino. But a lot of stuff that you hear in my superintendent's report can be found in our various social media platforms. And these are just some snippets from our different Twitter accounts or Instagram accounts that come from our STEM department, our middle school, our world languages, Ms. Doyle who's behind me. So I do want to encourage the community to really log on to our social media platforms as much as we rally against them. There is a lot of great information and a lot of insights as to what's happening in our classrooms, in terms of what our teachers are doing, in terms of some of the training. And stay in touch as always by logging on to our website. There is a community portal where you can subscribe to our Blackboard Connect, receive district correspondence. We also added the social media links. So all these social media platforms that I just demonstrated in the last slide are found on the social media link, so you can follow them and kind of keep in touch with our various schools and programs. Of course, there's a Superintendent's Corner, which I update on a monthly basis. It contains my contact information, my Twitter feed, as well as my weekly update, which is kind of a weekly blog that supplies school district and staff. So a lot of great things happening. We'll keep pushing forward. Thank you again, Mr. Hayes, for your presentation, and thank you for the board for their attention.
Thank you very much. All right, that brings us up to the trustee and advisory committee reports. So we'll start with Mr. Barry.
Well, terrific. I just wanted to share one thing on the day before or the day of the pep rally and homecoming. I was able to tour over at the high school. It's just good to see all the smiling faces and really get a better understanding of what my children have gone through or participating, and also the great opportunities and enthusiasm of the students and the as well as the faculty members who were there. So it was a good time spent.
Great. All right. Ms. Johnson.
Thank you. The class of 2024 has began fundraising for prom, which will take place at the Vineyards of Aquabog this June. So to fundraise, one thing that they're doing is a parking spot fundraiser. Seniors pay money to paint a parking spot for the year. Each parking spot has a different design that's unique to the student, so the parking lot will be a lot more colorful. And this fundraiser will help lower the cost of prom tickets and also show school spirit. The parking spots have all been painted. You guys can stop by and see them at the high school after hours when there's not a game going on, so that it won't be full still. Last Friday we had a great pep rally showcasing all of the athletes. I would like to thank Mr. Hayes and administration for putting this together and showing off the new scoreboard. It was really cool watching all the videos from each team that they were able to create to put their own selves into the day. This past Saturday we had our homecoming, and it was definitely one of the best ones yet. Aside from the parade getting canceled due to the rain, we had a great football win, and we also had a great turnout at the dance at night, and the student body pitched in and helped with cleaning and setting up. It just showed that we can all come together to put on an event like this. The class of 2025 took home first place for the floats and are now back-to-back champions. On Tuesday, October 24th, Student Council will be going to the elementary schools as we do every year, explaining the importance of staying safe on Halloween. Every year, the students are very excited to see us high school kids come down all dressed up, and it's important for them to get the message on staying safe on Halloween and have fun as well. We also talk to them about the trunk or treat that will take place on the 27th in the high school parking lot, where each club sets up an activity and hands out candy or toys to the kids walking through. This is a way to keep it safe while they can also have fun.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, trustee Flippin, trustee Pacini?
Yeah, I had a couple quick things. I did get a chance to attend the homecoming game, which was fun. I feel a little guilty that it's October and that's the first athletic event or any event I've been able to make it to, just because of the way my schedule is. So that was great. So it was nice to be around and see the festivities, and the floats look pretty good this year. You know, I had Rock'em Sock'em robots when I was a kid, so that float, the 80s thing, was actually really neat. Two quick things. From the last Nassau Suffolk School Board meeting, I didn't get the report on because I wasn't at the last meeting. There were just two quick things two topics that keep coming up that were discussed, amongst many other that we're all apprised of. But it's being discussed about the two biggest threats to education right now are this Child Victims Act, and I know we're in a pretty good position with that because we've been able to find our insurance. But one of the superintendents told a story. There's a school district upstate with, I think it's a $20 million budget, and they have $400 million worth of lawsuits against them right now. So there's some significant fear that this is going to be one of two things that may bankrupt education in the state if the state doesn't do something pretty quickly. The other piece is the state's mandate on electric buses for schools. This is going to be a huge problem, and as an example, whether you believe in electric buses or not, these buses are between $400,000 and $500,000 each. And just to bring it all together, to prove the point, Walt Whitman School District, that's South Huntington, right? South Huntington specifically owns 60 buses. That's like $30 million they'd have to come up with somewhere without any help from the state to try to buy buses if this is not changed, extended, or whatever. And there's many school districts that own their own buses, not to mention what will happen to the rates in these contracts when these bus companies are forced to go out and buy these $500,000 buses. So it's something to really kind of take notice of as to whether or not the governor changes some of these regulations, moves them out or not. But those are two significant threats, especially when the outlook of school finance seems to be kind of bleak going forward in the coming years. I think we talked about that last year, and I think we heard it from the controller at that night. You don't enjoy it this year because it's probably not going to be around. So those are two significant things I think we need to kind of keep an eye on in education in general. I do appreciate the notice that went out about Israel today. It was something I've seen other districts do, specifically my wife's district, because our kids are on social media a lot. And some of the stuff that I've seen is horrific. And it was really difficult week. I mean, I've been around a long time, there's a lot of conflicts, but I had a family member who was in Israel when the bombing started. And when the sirens went off, he was in proximity to some of the missile strikes and had to duck into a bomb shelter. And briefly speaking to him, I can tell you he shook. And he was there with the delegation from the NYPD that was there on an counterterrorism conference of some type. So he's with some seasoned, law enforcement officials and, some military veterans, and they were shook to the core before they got, scooted out on a plane, pretty quickly. So we're happy he's home. But and in addition to that, I work in the military and tactical industry. I sell military, equipment, uniforms, and things like that. And I can tell you the stories that I've had in the last 3 days of work. Our phones don't stop. All day long, they just go, people looking for stuff to send to Israel. And I was on the phone with a customer on Monday who has a family member who's kidnapped. He's a former Israeli soldier. So when you hear some of these stories today, leaving the office, one of my colleagues was on the phone with a customer in New York City who had a customer in his store who was ordering product over the phone while they were talking to a general that was in Israel. So these connections to how close we get to this stuff over there is it's different than, say, Ukraine, right? I think we all probably know more people of the Jewish faith than we do Ukrainians, right? And it's just different. And some of these stories, just listening and talking to somebody who had a family member being held captive was really, really brought it home for me this week, so I appreciate the comments and everything else, so thank you, and that's all I got.
All right. Trustee Kavanaugh, do you have anything you'd like to report?
No, President Felice, nothing to report.
Okay, thank you. Vice President Hayes?
Only to say that last Friday, I attended a virtual presentation for the Board Officers Academy and got a copy of the recording of the program that I forwarded to everybody. And if you can take the time over the next month to listen to it, I think you'll find it very beneficial. One of the good things about going to these training programs is to get validated that what we're doing on various issues, we are attending to things that need to be addressed. And I think that's a good learning experience for us to know that we're going in the right direction on things. I also attended a virtual webinar today on communication challenges, and one of my big takeaways from that was a suggestion that it be brought up in our strategic planning committee. And since I'll be attending strategic planning tomorrow evening, I plan to bring that up. And they did make reference to all the different platforms that districts use in order to stay in touch with the community. And I'm glad to see that we're on so many of them. So thank you for that. Is that it? That's it?
Okay. All right. I too attended that webinar on communication challenges, and just to echo the comments that Vice President Hayes already mentioned, the platforms that are offered for communication, it was pointed out how distinctly different they are from parents to students, and that we need to stay mindful of them with the same. I also appreciated the takeaway about entering the communication plan into strategic planning, and that communication is everybody's responsibility. Not just the superintendent, not just the Board of Education, everybody in the district is responsible for effective communication. And likewise, if you don't think that communication is sufficient, to let the parties know so that we can make those changes. But I also agree that we have moved in a direction to enhance our communications, and I think we have done that, quite well. But there's always room for improvement. But it was these webinars, the webinars that we took today are given free to board members, and they're offered during lunch so that you can try to squeeze it in the middle of your day. And even though it's difficult, it's just the first hour, it's 12 to 1, and then the second half hour is the question answer. So if someone is working, they have to get back to work, it makes it convenient, so you just get the education. But we did have it printed for all the Board of Education, the material that was distributed today, and because it's very helpful, and I think you'll find it meaningful, and I believe the superintendent may consider it for our retreat as well, pieces of it, right? Okay. And I was away for the weekend because I had a family wedding that was up in Cape Cod, who was experiencing the same weather that you were all experiencing, and it was an outside wedding. So we too got drenched, but it was a good time, and I do regret missing homecoming, but I'm so glad that everyone involved had such a good time.
Thank you.
And congratulations on a job well done. All right. And that's it on board reports.
Just very quickly, I did see some of those parking spots. They're beautiful. I took photographs of them, so I'm going to post them. And just so we understand, the seniors basically paint a full parking spot. They're very creative. And then they'll sort of repaint the parking lot at the end of the year so we can do it freshly for the next class. Hopefully, it's a tradition we carry on. But they're striking, and I'll post them as soon as I get to it. And I'll probably put it in part of my superintendent's report. But I was so impressed walking by. I was like, oh snap, these are pretty cool.
Yeah, it took a while, but it was fun.
Some of the seniors have already been posting some of them, and you're right, they're very, very artistic.
Yeah, yeah.
They're really professionally done.
It's nice.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, look forward to seeing them. righty. That brings us to public commentary for agenda items. Do we have any speakers, Madam District Clerk? Okay. That brings us to items for, this is actually items for action or discussion, if you still want to discuss the acceptance of the financial statements and the independent auditor's report that was presented to us prior for the year 2022 to 2023. We need a motion and a second to accept. So can we have a motion, please? Anybody?
So moved.
Motion by trustee Pacini, seconded by Vice President Hayes. Is there any other discussion that hasn't already been discussed prior? Seeing none? All those in favor of the motion, please raise your hands. Seeing all hands raised, the motion passes unanimously. Thank you. That brings us to the board consent agenda item for curriculum, item G.
The administration recommends the approval of curriculum items reflected in schedules G1 through G4.
Okay, again, need a motion and a second. Motion by trustee Flippin, seconded by anybody? Trustee Barry? Any discussion on items G1 through 4? Seeing no discussion, all those in favor, please raise your hands. Seeing all hands raised, the motion passes unanimously. And now that brings us to H, board consent agenda for personnel.
The administration recommends approval of personnel changes reflected in schedules H1 through H8.
Okay. Again, need a motion and a second for H1 through H8, H1 through H8. Seconded, motion by trustee Flippin, seconded by Vice President Hayes. Any discussion? Seeing no discussion, all those in favor of the motion, please raise your hands. Seeing all hands raised, the motion passes unanimously. And that brings us to our final consent agenda item for business, item I.
The administration recommends approval of business items reflected in schedules I1 through I6.
And again, motion and a second. We need for I1 through I6, motion by trustee Flippin, seconded by trustee Barry. Any discussion?
Oh,
Is there
no,
discussion?
no, I was voting, sorry.
Okay. All those in favor, please raise your hands. Seeing all hands raised, the motion passes unanimously. And that brings us back to public commentary for non-agenda items or agenda items. Seeing no cards? No cards? Anybody from the audience wish to speak? Nothing today, Mr. Brady? Okay. Then we will move on to meeting closure and closing remarks by the board members. Are there any remaining closing remarks? Seeing no closing remarks, we will take a motion to adjourn. Motion by trustee Barry, seconded by trustee Flippin. All those in favor, please raise your hands. Seeing all hands raised.